Hope everyone had a good week. It's been sort of an interesting, crazy one, but I'm pretty excited. We have a great guest tonight, Dr. Michael Lynch. Michael, how are you?
Doing great. It was a short week in a certain way, but yeah, doing great. Got a little sinus, so if your audience can't quite hear me, I'll try to clear my throat as best I can.
That's okay. I'm finding it too, dude. It's going around and freaking allergies are killing.
Yeah.
It's either oak pollen or mold, and I haven't quite found out which one, but, you know, Claritin's taking care of it, so we are going to do good.
So what have you been up to lately, Michael?
Lately I've been hanging out with a time traveler, and
awesome.
He has made several jumps into the past, not exactly on our timeline, but he has gone back to our timeline quite often, and it's been about.
From the future?
No, he is from our time now.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of a strange story. Some extraterrestrials were getting ready to jump back in time, and he saw their portal open, and so he went to investigate it because he thought someone had put a mirror or a window in the middle of the road. It was on a dirt road out in the country, and he was there cleaning out the fence rows and taking care of the trees and stuff like that because it's his uncle's property. So he parks his car thinking that someone has lost a window, and the window is in the middle of the road. So he gets out. It's kind of shiny and reflective, and he walks up to it, and he can see through it. And he says, "This is no window," but he didn't really know what it was, so he walks around it, and it's just flat, and it's just something that's flat. And anyway, he sticks a stick through it, moves the stick around, and he pulls the stick back out. Nothing happened to the stick, so he throws another stick through it, and it ends up on the other side. So he decides to walk through this time portal, and he ends up 171 years later in that area. In the same area, just 171 years in the past.
Oh, the past or the future?
The past. The past. It's 1841 when he arrives. And
well, that would certainly freak you out.
Well, it freaked him out, and we have done some research that the people that he met or claims to have met were in the census of the county at that time. So what has happened is he met people that in the county register, the county seat, they actually existed and paid taxes. So when he made another jump, he actually jumped here in St. Louis. He actually jumped back to 1954. And it was kind of it was an accident or how it really happened, but he was making a delivery, and anyway, he pulls into a parking lot. He claims that there was an arch there at the parking lot. And there is no arch, or never was an arch, but this was an energy arch, an archway. And so he drove his car right into it. And he ends up in 1954 at a area we used to call the Gaslight Square in St. Louis. Well, anyway, he thinks he's at the right address, but it's 1954. It's not 2008. So he gets out of the car and walks into this place of business, which is a bar and a restaurant. Excuse me. And he is walking in, and he sees the Smothers Brothers playing at this bar and restaurant. And anyway, so he's walking across the crowd because he's going to go to the back and go to the bathroom and ask somebody where this other business is that he needs to make a delivery at. And anyway, so he's walking across the crowd, and Tommy Smothers kind of points him out and tries to make him a butt of the joke. Well, while he's there, he turns around and to Tommy Smothers and says, The only reason why you're making fun of me is because Mother loved you best, or loved you more. And then Tommy Smothers just went crazy and said, that's an act we're working on right now. Nobody knows this act. I think you're a stalker. I think you're trying to sabotage our gig here, and blah, blah, blah. So he goes on to the bathroom, and he comes back out, and Tommy Smothers is almost getting ready to fight him. And they call the police and everything, and so he kind of hightails it out of there and gets back into his car, and he talks about almost getting hit by trolley cars. And he pulls out and goes down to a street called Lindell Boulevard. It's just in front of the Historical Museum, the History Museum. And he can't drive on the highway because of the railroad tracks. The trolley car tracks are still there in the road, and his car can't navigate very well. Well, anyway, he sees this arch again, and he drives through it and ends back into the year he left, which was 2008.
Huh.
So he has been around some type of alien technology or alien tech the first time, and has altered his biochemistry. And so he can either see these time doorways when they open, or he creates the time doorway by accident. And we don't really understand why. So he has brought to us some evidence of what he saw at that time, and it all makes sense. All the landmarks are there. And then I have a friend whom I've known for 20 years, and he said, that is familiar because I remember the Smothers Brothers being in St. Louis at this one particular restaurant. And I said, yeah, it was called something like the Hungry Eye. And he just went crazy. And my friend just went crazy and said, my dad took me down to that restaurant when it was Gaslight Square. And we saw the Smothers Brothers there. And they were in their tuxedos and all this stuff. And so my friend verified this guy's story to a T. But he was only 6 or 7 years of age in 1954, where this guy, this time traveler, slipped back and saw this all exactly the way it was.
It'd be interesting to see if there was a police report at that restaurant when the Smothers Brothers were there. They called police.
They never caught him, so he drove off and slipped back to his own time. But there was 2 instances where the police did either follow him or pick him up, but they never made an arrest. And they just thought he was kind of loony, and so they drove him to an address of his grandparents, which he knew, and they let him off there, and his grandparents were not at home. So they collected him again, took him back to where they picked him up, and then he gets out, and he sees the time doorway open again, and then he just kind of walks through it, and there's his Ford Fiesta, and he gets into it and drives home. Anyway, he's done about 6 of these time-traveling trips, and he's due for another one in about 8 months. But so far, everything that we have investigated and verified by eyewitnesses holds up his story. So he either did a great job of researching these places and then made this whole thing up, or he was actually there. But the strange part about this is that he's had 3 years of psychological help because he can't hardly handle it, and no one has believed him. So it's an interesting case. That's what we've been doing so far. So the last jump he went was 1954. He'll probably do another jump and end up probably in 1973 or 78. But anyway, he's getting closer and closer to his own time now. So whatever altered electromagnetically, altered his physiology, he is out of phase sync. So it's like he's trying to catch up. The time doorways are trying to catch him up to our time now. So the only artifact that we've been able to ascertain is that he said that he brought back some Dixie cups that he was able to put into his pocket. But after he got back and went to the psychologist tried to convince him that it was all a dream. And so he threw the Dixie cups away, even though that was his only evidence or proof.
I find it fascinating that he had a Ford Fiesta. I mean, that would be small enough to go through a doorway. I mean,
I was kind of thinking about that when you said he drove through it, but that makes more sense. Now you said you think he's on schedule to have another jump in 8 months. What makes you think that it's going to be in 8 months?
Well, we calculated that each time he went into the past, he was there for a certain duration, so many hours. And each time he goes into the past, he's there less and less time. And each time it's been 20 or 30 years in between. So each jump is about a 30-year jump. So we're calculating that it's about 1978 when he'll make his next jump. Now, physiologically, he's been altered, and it's possible to probably check his blood or his white blood cells to find out that he has been altered, but we don't have an original blood test or DNA strand before he jumped. So we'd have to go back to like 2006 and get a blood test. But right now, he is trying to deal with this duality of having these extraordinary experiences and trying to force that into a day-to-day reality. And it's very hard to do, psychologically as well as physiologically, because he doesn't know when it's going to happen again. So we just calculated that, yeah.
Yeah. Did he have any history of mental illness before this started, or psychiatric?
No. No. Yeah, I wish he had. I wish he had some type of psychiatric problem so I could write this whole thing off. But he hasn't. He didn't. And his claims to what he saw and the way he saw them is authentic. And there is no way. He wasn't born yet. He wasn't born in some of the timelines that he's been in.
That was my next question, is how old is this guy?
Yeah.
I mean, he's like 95.
No, he's like 35. He's like 35. So he was born probably in the late 70s. He never was he never had any time experiences. He's never had any premonitions. He's never had any dreams like this until that one incident when he was out in this country maintaining this property, and this first-time doorway opened. And somehow it was so strong, however it was so strong that it corrupted or altered his physiology to the point to where he, is not losing his identity, but he's having a very hard time struggling with why these things happen and why they happen to him. And these are...
I mean, that would be very similar to people who have ET experiences, And, on the one hand, it sounds like a very outlandish story and hard to verify. On the other hand, just in the realm of paranormal research, we talk a lot about time-space phenomena explaining paranormal activity. And so, I think, you can't exactly dismiss it out of hand, even without physical evidence at that point. Otherwise, then it kind of casts aspersions on what we say in terms of other phenomena. So,
well, you're right. I mean, we do talk about all kinds of space stuff. I mean, as far as paranormal is concerned, really, I mean, why couldn't it happen? There's some theory that Hat Men are actually
time travelers.
So, maybe that's kind of what he's doing, kind of, sort of. I don't know.
I mean, it could be.
Yeah, I know that the evidence that we have found so far verifies that these people actually existed, the times and places actually existed, and he wasn't old enough to have been there. So we have to take it that he's pulling a very elaborate ruse or something like that, or we have to look at this as maybe he inadvertently stepped into some alien technology and shifted into another time. And that is what I'm more leaning toward. I know that he could not have created it, and I know that he could not have done the detailed research unless he had actually been there. And what he described and what he